Every state, every school district in America looks the same. 3/4 of all students take Spanish. Okay. You're never going to do anything about that, and there's nothing wrong with that. It is the language that makes the most sense to the parents and the students. Why? Because it's not the closest. German would be the closest to English, ladies. I'm telling you right now. That's how I sold German, thank you very much. Why Spanish? Why are they so interested in learning Spanish? What's that? The immigrants, yeah, they see it every day. I mean, they go down the street. They go down the street, they see people speaking Spanish, they see it on television. There's nothing wrong with that. Spanish is a great language to learn. The problem is, with Spanish, what are you going to do with it? You're going to stay in the U.S. You're probably not going to do a lot of business outside the U.S. There's nothing, it's a great language, but it's a very easy language for students to pick up if they say they want to stay here. What if you're a student who wants to work abroad in international business? Well, now we make a case for things like French and Chinese. We need in our schools to do a better job advocating for why Chinese. And we need some help doing it. We need that help to be from China, so that China can help us understand why the language is important to the U.S. We need it to be from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce helping us to understand. We need it from the Michigan Chamber of Commerce. And you need it from your city. You need to be able to tell a cohesive story about why Chinese makes sense on the national level, on the state level, and in your tiny little community. You really need 3 stories. A quick story about national, a quick story about state, a quick story about your community. Once you've got that, you've got what we call an elevator speech. Something that resonates, that's a quick story that you can use to sell your language. Because there's always a language du jour. There's always a language that everybody says, oh, you better learn that language now. And what ends up happening is students choose that language for the wrong reasons. Remember, we got to get them to intermediate or above. Students need to choose the language that speaks to their heart. But they're only seeing Spanish. So when they walk down the street or when they're out they're choosing a language at 11 or 12 years old. If they've had nothing to connect Chinese to their heart, they're not going to pick Chinese. This is where culture comes in. Nobody does culture better than Chinese teachers. It's a big deal, the Chinese culture. That's a big part of the language, bigger than it is for German. Germans don't worry that much. I mean, consider the food. But Germans don't worry that much about it. I love German food. I love that there's a lot of it. Whenever you order German food, it's like this big on your plate. They are not playing. Big plates of great food. But for Chinese, get this into your schools earlier. Even the students who aren't taking Chinese, create a culture day, create a food day, something at the elementary level where students can start getting interested in the language early. No parent is going to tell their student to take Chinese. Parents are going to tell their kids to take Spanish. We need to create a reason for the student to go home and argue, I want to take Chinese because teacher had this wonderful thing at school that made my heart happy. So get that into the school earlier. And when parents ask, well, why in the world should a student take Chinese? I had a student ask me one time at this math and science school that we have in Georgia, I want to be a pilot for Delta. What language should I learn? So my first answer is, English is great. You're gonna need English to be a pilot, but hey, good for you, you already speak English. But now, right, now create a competitive advantage for yourself. He said, what's the most important? What should I take, French or German or Chinese or Japanese? I said, what speaks to your heart? He said, Chinese. Good. Go learn Chinese. But don't learn it a little. Learn it a lot. Become great. Go to China. Have an experience. Have your stuff. Take the HSK. Do all these things that really matter to create that competitive advantage, because now you've got your piloting and your advantage, your tool, which is Chinese, to add to it. And someday you're going to apply at Delta. And the day they open that application, they'll get 200 people applying to be a pilot. You're the only Chinese speaker. Why in the world would they hire the other 199 people if they can get somebody who speaks English and Chinese? They're going to hire you. And they're going to have to pay you more. Because if they don't, you're going to go to United. So now you've got the job. And now we're going to be really arrogant. If the fact you're smarter than monolinguals isn't bad enough, your life is more exciting and bigger than monolinguals. Because the other people that applied for that job, 2 or 3 of them got a pilot job too. If this guy gets the job in China, where does he get to fly? China, but where? Beijing or Shanghai, Hong Kong, all these wonderful places. The guy down the hall that speaks only English, you know where he gets to fly? Akron. I'm from there, so I can do it. Arkansas. Boise. That's the rest of that guy's life. That's 30 years of work. He only gets to fly to the places that speak English. But you get to fly everywhere. Your life is bigger. Your life is more exciting. Thank God you had an elementary school teacher that made you fall in love with Chinese. Thank God you had a middle school teacher that made you keep that love. Thank God you had a high school teacher that let you take the HSK. Thank God you had a Confucius Institute at Wayne State so you could go overseas. Thank God all these things were there. And quite honestly, thank God for CLAM for helping to bring everybody together to create these connections. This stuff doesn't happen magically. It's a lot of work. And that's why you're here. And that's what you're doing for these students. And you're the only ones that are giving them this. So be careful of that language du jour. The language does not matter. The level matters. The level and the ability to connect it to a business, to what you're going to do with your life is what matters.